Hear ye. Court is now in session in the case, the Superior Court of the State of Washington, in and for the County of Thurston, State of Washington versus Dale Reynolds. These are the facts of the case and are not disputed. On September the 30th, 2019, Dale Reynolds, age 18, shot and killed his stepfather, Thomas Simpson, as Simpson entered the front door of their home at 1516 Lynn Avenue, Olympia. Dale then called the police. Detective Nick Lewis responded to the call, reported to the house, and interviewed Dale, and then arrested him. Dale was charged with premeditated murder in the first degree. Dale waived his right to remain silent and admitted that he shot Simpson, but asserts that he acted in self-defense. Dale claims that he acted in self-defense because he perceived he was in imminent danger of serious bodily harm due to years of abuse at the hands of Thomas Simpson, a condition similar to battered woman syndrome called battered child syndrome. Dale stated that Simpson came to live with the family 12 years ago when Dale was 6 years old, and that Simpson had abused Dale, a younger sister, and their mother on almost a daily basis since 2007. Dale states that Mr. Simpson was subject to unpredictable bursts of anger, where he would beat them, smash their toys, and threaten to kill them for failing to do chores around the house. The state of Washington claims that Dale acted with premeditated intent to cause the death of his stepfather and did cause his death. The prosecution denies that Dale was acting in self-defense because Simpson was not actually threatening Dale at the time of the shooting. Dale claims that at the time of the shooting, he was in fear for his life because Simpson had threatened to kill him the night before, after Simpson had accused Dale of stealing drugs from him. Your job in this case is to act as the defense lawyer team representing Dale Reynolds. You will listen to 4 testimonies from Detective Nick Lewis, Jan Martinez, Dale Reynolds himself, and Dr. Pat Carroll. From those testimonies, you will construct an opening statement to the jury explaining why they will find in the evidence reason to find Dale Reynolds not guilty.
Hi, my name is Jan Martinez. I'm good friends with Dale. I live in Olympia. I'm a junior at Olympia High School, and Dale and I have been friends since 6th grade, and we started dating in 9th. Dale is really moody, and he tends to hang out around with a really tough crowd, so I ended up just avoiding him. And I'm pretty sure he started cheating on me in that point in time. One day I walked to his house to see if he was coming to school, and he asked me to come to his room. He showed me a shotgun that he stole from Mr. Simpson and said that he was going to use it to kill Mr. Simpson. And at the time I didn't really think much of it because I was scared and I didn't really think he meant it. But now that I look back, I really wish that I could have done something to stop.
My name is Nick Lewis. I reside in Olympia. I'm a detective with the Olympia Police Department in Olympia, Washington. I've been a police officer for 21 years and a detective for 10 years. Presently, I head up the Homicide Investigations Division. On September 30th, 2019, at about 4:45 p.m., I received a call on my car radio that there had been a shooting at 1516 Lynn Avenue. I was in the area and I responded to the call. I arrived at the house at 4:55 p.m. and found a white male lying on the doorsteps with 2 gunshot wounds in the head. He was dead. I checked and found no weapons in the dead man's possession. The defendant was standing in the living room just inside the front door, still holding a 9mm handgun. No one else was home at the time. I quickly walked through the house and found that there was no sign of a struggle. I advised the defendant of his rights. The defendant was crying and seemed disoriented. I could smell alcohol on his breath. We took the defendant down to the station where he gave a voluntary statement. The defendant admitted to shooting Simpson, but claimed that he was acting in self-defense.
My name is Pat Carroll, and I reside in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I am a professor of psychology at the Medical College of Wisconsin. I hold a PhD in psychology from the University of Minnesota. I have written numerous articles about the battered child syndrome. and was in the forefront of bringing this condition to the attention of the courts as a legitimate defense to cases in which children have killed abusive parents. I also spend time testifying at trials across the country. My fee is $5,000, plus expenses. This includes my time in reviewing the case files, interviewing the defendant, and actual testimony. I have reviewed the files in this case and conducted 2 one-hour interviews with the defendant. In my opinion, Dale Reynolds was suffering from battered child syndrome at the time he shot and killed his stepfather. Battered child syndrome is an extension of the battered woman syndrome. The battered woman syndrome has become an accepted defense by abused women who have killed their abusive husbands or boyfriends. Like the battered woman syndrome, the battered child defense allows jurors to evaluate the state of mind of the child at the time of the act of killing by considering a pattern of abuse that has altered the child's perception about whether he was in imminent danger at the time of the act. Battered children and women perceive more acutely than strangers the imminence and degree of danger at the hands of their abusers. We call this heightened awareness or hypervigilance. Victims of continued abuse become attuned to the stages of violence and learn to interpret certain conduct to indicate an imminent attack or a more severe attack. To a battered person, subtle changes, like a new method of abuse, may create a reasonable fear of imminent severe or deadly violence that may be imperceptible to an outsider. Because victims of abuse know their abusers and their capacities for violence, they may strike back at times that seem to the outsider less dangerous than previous episodes of abuse, or that do not seem threatening at all to someone else. Children who have suffered abuse over long periods of time often also suffer from low self-esteem, depression, isolation, a belief in the all-powerful presence of the abuser, and a sense that there's nothing they can do to stop the violence.
My name is Dale Reynolds, and I'm presently residing at the Thurston County Jail. I'm 18 years old, and I was a senior in high school at the time of the shooting. Up until the shooting, I lived with my mom and little sister at 1516 Lynn Avenue. Simpson moved in with us about 12 years ago when I was 6 years old. My dad had just left. We'd never heard from him since the day he walked out. My mom was happy when she met Simpson because he seemed like a good provider, and he was okay to us kids at first, too. Pretty soon we moved into a house that Simpson bought, and almost right away things began to change. He started beating on my mom first, then started in on me. He'd scream and yell if I didn't take out the garbage when he asked, and if he thought I was slow, he'd find something he knew I cared about and destroy it. One time he smashed my bike with a sledgehammer, and another time he threw my phone out the window. I'd saved up for months to buy it. But all of that wasn't as bad when he beat us. It was totally unpredictable. One minute he'd be fine, and the next he was kicking me in the stomach, pinning me down, and bashing my head on the floor. It happened at least 2 or 3 times a week. A week before I shot him, I had to go to the emergency room and get 15 stitches in my forehead, where he took a baseball bat to me when he thought I'd stolen some marijuana from him. Only a few minutes before, we'd been playing ball. The night before the shooting, I could hear him slapping my mom around, and I yelled for him to stop. He came in my room and told me if I didn't keep out of his business, he'd get rid of me once and for all. He accused me of taking some stuff from it. The next morning, after everyone else had left the house, I broke the lock on his closet and took out his shotgun and another smaller gun. The smaller gun was all right. I drank some of his alcohol just to make him mad and sat waiting for him. I don't really remember what else happened, except that when he walked in the door, I must have shot him. I was sure he was coming to get me.